I was just saying Louis doesn't understand social distancing. So he goes up like wanting to cuddle everything, and particularly any babies younger than him.
Royal routines don't often leave room for surprise, especially when every move is watched. But during one recent appearance, something happened that no one expected. All attention shifted to Prince Louis, and within seconds, the tone of the entire event changed. Even the king seemed caught off guard. It wasn't dramatic, yet it carried weight far beyond his age and left an impression that couldn't be ignored. What happened in that brief moment that has everyone talking? Join us as we explore how Prince Louis changed the course of a royal appearance with a single gesture. The weight of royal titles. At just 7 years old, in a moment that caught everyone's attention, Prince Louis did what few could have predicted. Everyone noticed as he bowed his head deliberately and respectfully. What struck people most wasn't just the gesture, but how natural it seemed coming from him. Even King Charles paused. For a child known mostly for mischief and charm, it was a reminder that Prince Louis carries a title rooted in royal law, family legacy, and careful planning. When he was born on April 23, 2018,
Town crier announced the birth of Prince William and Duchess Kate's third child outside the hospital.
His full title was announced as His Royal Highness Prince Louis of Cambridge. That came directly from his father's title at the time, Duke of Cambridge. But Louis didn't get this title by chance. Under old royal rules, he wouldn't have been granted the title of prince at all. The original rule goes back to 1917, when King George V decided to limit the use of royal titles. He issued a formal rule, known as letters patent, which allowed only the children and male-line grandchildren of a monarch to use the style, His or Her Royal Highness. In other words, great-grandchildren like Prince Louis wouldn't qualify unless they were directly in line for the throne. That changed in 2012, when Queen Elizabeth II issued her own letters patent. She specifically declared that all the children of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, meaning all of Prince William's children, would be princes or princesses, no matter where they were in the line of succession. Without that decision, Louis would have been Master Louis Cambridge, not a prince. But because of that legal update, he became a prince from birth. His name was also carefully chosen. His full name is Louis Arthur Charles. Each part has meaning. Louis is believed to honor Lord Louis Mountbatten, the beloved uncle of Prince Philip. He was a key figure in the royal family, especially to Prince Charles, who was very close to him. Arthur appears in the middle names of both Prince William and King Charles. It's a traditional name tied to British royal history. And Charles is an obvious nod to his grandfather, the current king. Titles like his help determine everything from public rank to how he'll be treated on royal visits, in the press, and behind palace doors. The title gives him a place in the family's working structure. It affects how he'll be presented at events, where he'll sit, and even how he'll be addressed at school or abroad. And whether the public realizes it or not, a title like Prince builds expectations from the moment it's announced. Looking ahead, people often wonder what new title Prince Louis might carry as he grows older. The Duke of Edinburgh is one possibility. The title was originally given to Prince Philip in 1947. After his death in 2021, it was passed to Prince Edward in 2023, but only as a lifetime appointment. That means when Edward passes away, the title will return to the crown. At that point, the monarch could reassign it to a younger royal, and Louis would be a fitting choice given the connection to Philip and the symbolic weight of the title. Another possible title is Duke of York, which has traditionally gone to the second son of the monarch. However, that title is currently held by Prince Andrew, and it may not be reissued due to the public controversy surrounding him. If not that, Louis could be given an entirely new dukedom, chosen by the reigning monarch when the time comes. What we know is that Prince Louis's title is the start of a life already shaped by law, lineage, and royal strategy. And when he bowed his head, people were seeing someone born into the weight of history, already carrying it with more grace than anyone expected. When King Charles gave the Duke of Edinburgh title to his youngest brother, Prince Edward, many believed it was only temporary, not because Edward didn't deserve it, but because the title itself has always held more than personal meaning. And, in the long game of royal planning, it may just be waiting for someone younger, someone like Prince Louis. The story of the title goes all the way back to 1726. King George I gave it to his grandson, Prince Frederick, as a way to mark him out from his many siblings. Since then, it's only been handed out a few times. Every time it appears, it's tied to someone the monarch believes can carry weight, publicly and privately. This has always been tied to duty and legacy, but it's Prince Philip who made it unforgettable. After marrying Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he became the Duke of Edinburgh. And he didn't just carry the title, he gave it real value. Through the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, he changed thousands of lives. Young people from over 130 countries took part, many of them going on to lead in business, government, or community work. He pushed science, stood for discipline, and championed causes like conservation and climate awareness long before they were popular. When he passed in 2021, that's when Edward stepped in. On March 10, 2023, which was his 59th birthday, King Charles granted him the title as a gesture of continuity. It honored both Prince Philip's wish and the Queen's promise. Edward and his wife, Sophie, had already spent years taking on many of Philip's roles. It felt earned. But unlike in the past, the title won't automatically pass to Edward's son, James. Once Edward dies, the title will go back to the crown. And that's where things get interesting for Prince Louis. He is just 7 years old, but his path is already being shaped. He won't be next in line, but he will grow up in the public eye. His future will have to carry meaning, and a title like Duke of Edinburgh could give that meaning real weight, just like it did for Philip, and just like it's doing for Edward now. But this is about what the title demands. If Louis ever receives it, it would be a public signal that he's stepping into something much bigger than himself. Would he be ready for that responsibility? Keep watching to find out. Prince Louis's unique place in the House of Windsor. Prince Louis may be young, but he's part of something far bigger than most people realize. His story stretches across royal traditions, global history, and a very modern shift in what it means to be royal today. He was born into the House of Windsor, the royal house officially created by King George V in 1917. At the time, Britain was at war with Germany, and George V didn't want the royal family to keep its original German name, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So he changed it. Windsor sounded more English and more relatable. Since then, every monarch from George V to King Charles III has kept the name, and it's become a symbol of stability. Through war, loss, scandal, and progress, the House of Windsor has held the monarchy together. Prince Louis's connection to the Windsor line runs through his father, Prince William. As the firstborn son of King Charles III and Princess Diana, William is both heir and symbol of the next generation. But his roots are deeply emotional. Through Diana, Louis is linked to the Spencer family, known for their independence and strong sense of justice. Diana herself was often seen as the heart of the royal family during her time, and that warmth didn't disappear with her. It lives on in William and now in Louis. Then there's Louis's mother, Catherine. Before she became Princess of Wales, she was simply Kate Middleton. Her family didn't hold titles or estates. They ran a small business, went to local schools, and lived like millions of other British families. But what Catherine brought
The room had gone quiet before anyone quite understood why. It was a formal royal gathering, the kind with rehearsed choreography and predictable rhythms, where every handshake and every glance has usually been anticipated days in advance. And then, without warning, a 7-year-old broke the pattern. Prince Louis lowered his head. Not a wave, not a wriggle, not one of the mischievous faces the public has come to expect from him. A slow, deliberate bow. For a few seconds, the entire tone of the event shifted. Even King Charles, a man trained since childhood to keep his composure in front of cameras, appeared to pause and take note. It wasn't theatrical, it wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that seemed to belong to someone many years older, and it left people asking the same question. What exactly did they just witness? To understand why that small gesture mattered so much, it helps to understand who Prince Louis actually is within the structure of the British monarchy, because his position was never guaranteed by birth alone. He was born on April 23, 2018, the third child of Prince William and Catherine, then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. The town crier announced his arrival outside the Lindo wing at St. Mary's Hospital, and his full title followed soon after. His Royal Highness Prince Louis of Cambridge. On paper, that sounds automatic. In reality, it very nearly wasn't his by right at all. The rules governing who gets to be called a prince or princess in Britain trace back to 1917, when King George V issued a formal declaration known as Letters Patent. Amid the anti-German sentiment of the First World War, George V was reshaping the monarchy's image, and one of his changes restricted the style his or her Royal Highness to the children of the sovereign and to the children of the sovereign's sons. Great-grandchildren of a monarch, under that rule, would not automatically qualify unless they stood in direct line for the throne. Under the strict letter of that 1917 patent, Prince Louis, as a great-grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II through a second son's line, no less complicated a lineage than it sounds, would likely have been known simply as Master Louis Mountbatten Windsor. That changed because of a decision Queen Elizabeth II made in December 2012, shortly before the birth of Prince George. She issued her own letters patent, extending the title of prince or princess to all children of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, regardless of where they fell in the order of birth or whether they were boys or girls. The timing mattered enormously. It meant that when Louis arrived in 2018, third in line among William and Catherine's children, he was still entitled to the same status as his older siblings. Without that 2012 update, only Prince George would have carried the title automatically, and Louis and his sister Charlotte would not have been princes or princesses at all. It's a detail that rarely gets discussed at children's birthday parties, but it shaped the entire course of Louis's public life before he had said his first word. His name carries its own layered history. Louis Arthur Charles was the name chosen by his parents, and royal commentators have widely noted the resonance of each part. Louis is often linked by royal watchers to Lord Louis Mountbatten, the great-uncle of Prince Philip and a mentor figure to King Charles in his younger years, though the palace itself has never issued an official confirmation of that connection. Arthur echoes a name that appears in the fuller titles of both King Charles and Prince William, tying the young prince to generations of royal men before him. And Charles, most obviously, honors his grandfather, the reigning monarch. Names in the royal family are rarely accidental, and this one reads like a quiet nod to the men Louis is descended from and the ones he may one day be measured against. Beyond the ceremonial value, that title shapes real, tangible parts of his upbringing. It determines where he sits at formal events, how palace staff and foreign dignitaries are expected to address him, and how schools and institutions handle his presence when he's older. It also, whether the public thinks about it or not, sets a baseline of expectation. A title like Prince arrives with obligations attached, even for a child who spends most of his public appearances pulling faces at the crowd. The 2012 decision didn't just affect Louis. It reopened a broader conversation about consistency within the family that has never fully settled. When Prince Harry and Meghan's children, Archie and Lilibet, were born, they did not immediately use the styles prince and princess in everyday public life, even though the 2012 letters patent technically entitled them to those titles once Charles became king. Archie and Lilibet only began using the styles in March 2023, after Buckingham Palace formally confirmed their entitlement following the coronation. That gap fueled years of public debate over why some grandchildren of a monarch's children carried titles from birth, while others waited on formal confirmation, with royal commentators offering explanations ranging from ordinary administrative timing to deeper questions about how the family was choosing to present itself during a period of visible internal tension. Louis, born in 2018, before that particular controversy existed, never had to wait. His title was confirmed the moment the town crier stepped outside the hospital doors. That raises a natural question about where his path might lead as an adult, particularly around the dukedoms that have historically been reserved for close male relatives of the monarch. One name that comes up often among royal historians is Duke of Edinburgh. The title dates back to 1726, when King George I bestowed it on his grandson, Prince Frederick, largely as a way to distinguish him among a crowded field of siblings. It has been granted only a handful of times since, and each time it has gone to someone the reigning monarch believed could carry both the public duty and private discipline the name implies. No one shaped that reputation more than Prince Philip. After marrying the then Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he took on the Duke of Edinburgh title and turned it into something far more than ceremonial. Through the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, a program he founded to push young people toward resilience, service, and self-discipline, he touched the lives of millions of participants across well over 100 countries. He also became known for his outspoken interest in science, industry, and conservation long before environmental concerns were fashionable in public life. When he died in 2021, the title sat unused for 2 years. On March 10, 2023, his 59th birthday, King Charles formally granted the Duke of Edinburgh title to his younger brother, Prince Edward, in what royal correspondence described as a gesture that honored both their late father's legacy and a promise reportedly made to Queen Elizabeth II. But there was a significant catch. Unlike most hereditary dukedoms, this grant was made specifically as a life peerage. It will not automatically pass to Edward's son, James, Earl of Wessex, when Edward dies. Instead, the title reverts to the crown, leaving the reigning monarch free to reassign it to whoever they consider fitting. That structural detail is exactly why Prince Louis's name keeps surfacing in conversations about the title's long-term future. He carries a family connection to Philip through the wider Windsor line, and given how the current king has spoken about wanting a leaner, more purposeful monarchy in years to come, handing a historically meaningful title to a grandson who has already shown unusual public composure would fit a pattern Charles has favored throughout his reign. Royal commentators have floated the idea for years, though it remains speculation rather than confirmed planning, and any decision would ultimately rest with whoever occupies the throne by the time Edward's tenure ends. Given that Louis will likely be in his 30s or 40s by then, there is no shortage of time for the family's plans and the public's expectations to shift multiple times over. The other title historically tied to close male relatives of the sovereign, Duke of York, occupies a very different position today. For decades it belonged to Prince Andrew, who received it from Queen Elizabeth II in 1986. That changed dramatically in the autumn of 2025, when Andrew announced he would give up use of the title amid renewed public pressure over his association with the late Jeffrey Epstein. Weeks later, King Charles went further, formally stripping his brother of the style Royal Highness and the title of Prince altogether through a fresh letters patent. The result is that Duke of York currently sits vacant, unclaimed by anyone in the family, available for the monarch to reissue to a future generation whenever he judges the moment right. Whether that title eventually returns to public use, and who might carry it, remains an open question that royal watchers continue to track closely. Zooming out from titles and legal technicalities, Prince Louis's identity is also shaped by the two family lines that converge in him. Through his father, he descends from the House of Windsor, the name King George V adopted in 1917 specifically to distance the monarchy from its German-sounding predecessor, Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, during the height of anti-German sentiment in Britain. Every monarch since has kept that name, and it has become shorthand for continuity through war, scandal, and generational change. Through his grandmother, the late Diana, Princess of Wales, Louis is connected to the Spencer family, one of England's oldest aristocratic houses, long associated with independence and a certain emotional candor that stood in contrast to the reserve typically expected of royal life. And through his mother, Catherine, Princess of Wales, he carries a very different kind of inheritance. Kate's own family built a small party supplies business, Party Pieces, from the ground up, and she grew up largely outside the aristocratic world she eventually married into. Royal commentators have often pointed to her steadiness and directness as a stabilizing influence on her children, and that influence is visible in how naturally George, Charlotte, and Louis behave in front of cameras compared to earlier generations of young royals. Among the three siblings, Louis has developed a distinct public reputation. George, the eldest, is generally described by royal watchers as composed and increasingly aware of the future role awaiting him, a boy being raised with the understanding that the crown will eventually rest with him. Charlotte is often noted for stepping in to manage her younger brother's antics with a kind of confident authority beyond her years, frequently photographed, nudging him back into line during long ceremonial appearances. Louis, meanwhile, has become the family's unscripted element, the one who dances during formal events, pulls faces at the cameras, and delivers moments that end up dominating headlines the family never planned for. None of that undermines his standing. If anything, it seems to have made the monarchy more approachable to a public increasingly skeptical of formality for its